Hello and welcome to a live Deprogram with Keri Smith. I am your host, Keri. Today is Friday, May 24th. We're starting half an hour late. I appreciate you guys for being patient and for being here. I hope you're having a great Friday. And if it's your first time here, this is a live show we do Mondays and Fridays, usually starting at 1 o'clock Central. We sometimes have interviews, sometimes have guests, talk about what's in the news, what's on my mind, what's on your mind. Today, I want to talk about a subject that's unfolding in relation to censorship, the online world, authoritarianism, government getting involved in what you can and can't say. It's what's currently unfolding with Billboard Chris in Australia. Um, Before we get to that, I'll just say, because I had some people asking in our live stream last night and I didn't talk about it. Yes, I have seen the news of what's happening with Nick Rekieta. And I don't it's funny, we did a stream, Mystery Chris and I, last night about reality TV, like trash TV. And in that stream, I kind of made some comparisons to DramaTube, and I don't like seeing people use the worst moments of a person's life as thumbnails and clickbait and subject matter, and just I don't like seeing it. So this is all I'll say about it in a video. Probably, is that, I feel for him. My heart goes out to him and to every person who struggles with addiction. It is a beast, it is a demon, it is like a possession. Um, I have been that person who is blackout drunk. I have been that person who has strayed really far from my own identity as a sacred creation of God. And I just say, lift your prayers up for him in seriousness if you pray, and pray for all the addicts. I did a stream last month called Addiction and Sobriety. If you haven't seen it, if you're someone that struggles with addiction, go and check it out. Maybe we'll do another video at some point about where I think addiction and some of this stuff stems from, because I think a lot of things happen before you get to that place, before you get to a place of this demon of addiction having hold of you. But um that's all I'm going to say about it. Yes, Therese, all the ghouls enjoying it. Yes, I've seen clips of people who are streaming about it, gleefully laughing at this man, and gleefully laughing at his obvious suffering and humiliation in the public eye. And I did an interview with him a couple years ago. I still remember that very fondly. Uh, I think he's a good man, and I think the the better, if you're a good man, like, Satan is going to target you. Like, demons are going to target you if you are trying to walk the path. When you first get saved, I've heard this before. When you first get saved, suddenly Satan's like pays attention, like, what's happening, because he wasn't concerned before, right? So then you start. Some people talk about spiritual attacks after you first get saved, and um you're gonna fall very hard if you fall when you're a good man. And so, uh, I think he's a good man, and I'd say just pray for him, that's it. Okay, today we are talking about, similar topics to what we've been covering on this channel as a whole. Deprogrammed is a channel about social justice ideology, which is my old belief system, woke ideology, and the way it's become mainstream in the past 10 years or so. What it's about versus what it says it's about. I spent 20 years in the social justice belief system. And so I do a lot of interviews and we do a lot of videos covering different topics related to that. This story is, I think, just very illustrative of the state of the world that we live in. The absolute state of the Orwellian authoritarian world that we're in right now, where men are being forced to say lies. I say men as in humankind. People are being forced to speak untruths by the government. What's a government? A government is, a body that we've agreed to give a certain amount of power, and they can back up that power with force. They can send men with guns. They can put you in jail. They can levy a fine against you. And the government of Australia, in this recent case, is trying to force my friend Billboard Chris to lie. Let me just pull this up. If you don't know this story, this is just the most recent update, and we're going to delve into the specifics of it. Because I think, hopefully, if there's anyone on the left watching, if there's anyone on the left who might stumble across this video, maybe we can agree on at least some things about this case and what's wrong with it. So this is his recent tweet. This is from yesterday. And it's responding to a Rebel News article saying the judge, and this is the Rebel News article, the judge orders trans activist pronouns must be respected in Billboard Chris hearing. Court's directive that a biological woman cannot be referred to as she raises eyebrows amid ongoing legal battle for free speech. And here's Billboard Chris's statement. He says, the e-safety office ordered my post taken down partly because I called Teddy Cook a woman. Now, in the appeal, before anything has even really started, the judge says we can't call Teddy Cook a woman. That's what the case is about, though. The whole case is about that. And they're saying he can't right out the gate. I will not be complying with this. This is based Billboard Chris. I love this. I love this. I love this. A good man standing to principles, standing for truth. It's not a small thing what he's saying. I will not be complying with this. Teddy Cook is a woman. Find me in contempt, arrest me at the hearing, whatever. I'm not lying for an activist judge. And I saw this post and I just wanted to cheer because we need more people doing this to end this insanity that we're living in. We need more people doing this. So what is this court case? What is this about? Let me pull this up and I'll show you a little bit about it. Here we go. Let's share this one instead. Can you see this Daily Mail article? So this headline, why this quote disparaging post about an an Australian UN trans expert who plugs bondage, bestiality, drugs, and taxpayer-funded sex change operations must be taken down, according to the Australian government, or billionaire Elon Musk will cop to an $800,000 fine. The e-safety commissioner of Australia demands the post be deleted. If you scroll down, so basically, Billboard Chris did a post about this woman who's been hired by the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, to help write transgender healthcare policy globally. This person's been hired. So he wrote about it. Here's that original post. This is the original post that started everything. And he included an article here about her. She is a biological woman, and I don't respect her. So no, I'm not going to use the pronouns that are requested. I'm going to call her. Respect is earned, and this person has not earned my respect. So this woman, yes, she's female, is part of a panel of 20 experts hired by the World Health Organization to draft their policy on caring for trans people. People who belong in psychiatric wards are writing the guidelines for people who belong in psychiatric wards. That was his whole post. That's what Billboard Chris said. Okay, so in response to and then he shared this article. And here's the article he shared. It was also from the Daily Mail, and it was about this woman, Teddy Cook. Here's the headline: Kinky secrets of UN trans expert revealed. Australian activist plugs bondage, bestiality, nudism, drugs, and tax-funded sex change operations. So why is he writing health advice for the world body? You'll notice here, this news organization, the Daily Mail, they said he, but she is a biological woman. And then here are some of the sub headlines here. Teddy Cook posted an X-rated image of a dog apparently having sex with a man. Yeah, she did that. Bestiality. The quote, they say the fun-loving trans activist may be just too smutty for intergovernmental work. You think maybe this person shouldn't be working for the World Health Organization, possibly. Here's the article that was included in that original tweet of Billboard Chris's. A transgender member of the new UN panel that's drafting global health rules has a kinky track record in everything from bestiality to bondage, drugs, and nudism. Teddy Cook, a female to male trans activist, started work this month on the World Health Organization's 20 expert body, drafting care guidelines for trans and non-binary people. Cook, 45, who describes, they say himself as a, quote, professional queer, a man of trans experience, end quote, has a controversial backstory. And warning, there are pictures of this woman here topless, just FYI. Cook, she's advocated for taxpayer-funded surgeries for all trans Australians and worked on a study about trans people having better sex when they're high and all messed up on drugs. Look at that. Advocating for let's get messed up. So these are just some of the pictures that she shared. These are the ones that are so explicit they're not going to be put in a news article. Trust me. These are the ones that the news article that the Daily Mail felt like they could include. There are photos that she's posted at sex parties. Again, this person's working for the World Health Organization right now, writing international health policy. Can you this is what world are we in, right? Billboard Chris was exactly right. People who should be psychiatric patients writing policy for psychiatric patients. Cook's social media posts are even more revealing. And by the way, they do call her he throughout the article, but I'm not going to do that. So every time I say she, just know they're saying he. She's posted about everything from public nudity to bondage parties, trans orgies, and even a photo of a man having sex with a dog. These revelations should not necessarily exclude Cook from work at the UN. That's what this article says. Really? It shouldn't? I would beg to differ. This is a place where in the past, when I've talked about public officials getting caught with nasty, repulsive, public depravity in their lives, I have been told online by some atheists who are either ANCAP or libertarian, or at least that's how they say, that's what they call themselves, who have argued with me that what a person does in their personal life shouldn't matter. And I fully, this is one of the reasons, I mean, I don't agree with that at all. Absolutely, what you do in your personal life matters. It informs me about your character. What everyone's personal life, what people do in their personal life, it is information that informs, that helps us understand who they are as people, what their character is like, and whether they're fit for serving the public, for being a public servant, being paid by the public to serve the public. It's absolutely relevant. And in all of these cases in the past where I've had people challenge me on this, they're talking about what's happening in a person's private bedroom. It's not in the private bedroom. In almost all of these cases, it's these perverts, these degenerates posting this stuff publicly. Posting ads to be, what was that recent one, that Spanish politician? He was advertising online publicly to be a sex slave and to eat feces. I mean, these are public servants. He also filmed that video that he posted publicly. He filmed it in his public servant office, if that matters to you, libertarians, on the taxpayer dime. It absolutely is relevant. Where did we get to this place in society where we're like, no, it doesn't matter what kind of person you are. If you're a degenerate, sure, you can be a teacher. I've seen them say that if a elementary school teacher has an OnlyFans, it shouldn't matter. That's her private life. No, it's not. We should all be appalled that someone who is entrusted to care for children is falling into degeneracy like that. And it's not private life because they're soliciting online publicly. If it is known publicly, then no, they should not be teaching children. They should be removed from that position as a public servant. Absolutely. Bring back moral judgment. So this article, though, takes the opposite stance. It says these revelations should not necessarily exclude Cook from work at the UN. Yes, they should. In a sane society, if we hadn't fallen into this pit of darkness where social justice and woke ideology has taken us, in a sane society, yes, 50 years ago, it wouldn't be a question. 100 years ago, it wouldn't be a question. Yeah, should exclude her from work at the UN. Obviously, someone with competency should say, hey, somebody in charge there should say, hey, sorry, you've been disqualified. Let's look at else, though, who has actually been disqualified from this panel of experts writing the World Health Organization's policy on transgender healthcare. Let's look. It says, for many, her antics are too smutty for a straight-laced intergovernmental body. What is that even? Straight-laced intergovernmental. It's not just that it's straight-laced. You're describing it with these silly adjectives. It's that it's public policy, that this person is a public servant, and that means something. They also reinforced concerns about the WHO's Trans Health Panel, which met for the first time in Geneva this month. Critics say the group, which is made up of trans campaigners and advocates, is biased. Of course they are. These aren't medical doctors. These are activists. These are extremist activists who are pushing ideology. And that's who the World Health Organization hired to write trans policy. A lot of them are part of WPATH, which has been completely discredited, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. I did a series of videos on the WPATH files. Go and watch them. It's been completely discredited. Anyone who works with WPATH should not be on this panel. That should be disqualifying. So it continues. One trans activist member has already left the panel amid controversy. Really? While another has been exposed for sharing X-rated grinder hookup posts. Another degenerate. Shocking, right? Cook and the World Health Organization did not answer Daily Mail's request for comment. Cook is a director for LGBTQ plus community health for ACON, a community group in Sydney, Australia. She famously addressed the New South Wales Parliament in 2021, saying trans people deserve dignity and are not a threat. You, ma'am, are not a dignified person. You're posting pictures of bestiality. You're encouraging drug use and public nudity, and you're not a person worthy of dignity. And it has nothing to do with your gender dysphoria, with you saying you're trans or any of that. It has to do with your behavior and how you conduct yourself. You're not a dignified person. So no, you don't deserve dignity. You don't deserve this position on this board. This is a picture of her public nudity at a beach. We'll scrolling past that. More pictures of her in her underwear. She regularly posts material on social media that is, for some, crude and inappropriate. For some, that's sad, right? That it's just crude for some. That includes photos of herself naked on beaches with her hands covering her privates. Others show her in bondage gear in nightclub settings or wearing t-shirts with explicit sayings such as "come in me, bro." Another post appears to show a large black dog penetrating a man from behind. Yeah, bestiality post. Cook also co-founded a safe sex campaign group called Grunt, which promotes hot, informed sex between trans guys and cis guys. The group published a booklet. So porn. It's a porn site. The book published a booklet of photos of trans people wearing sexual bondage gear and graphic sex scenes with multiple partners. It advises female to male trans members to tell male sex partners what to expect when they get between the sheets. They could say, quote, this is an example from this booklet. This is all the good this person's doing in society, right? The booklet says, you could say things like, I'm trans. That means I've got a bonus hole or front hole, the booklet suggests. Cook's academic research. Oh, yeah, believe it or not, this degenerate's doing academic research, has come under the spotlight. I'm scrolling on past this stuff. Oh, gosh. Gross. That shirt, gross. Okay. She worked on a 2022 paper in the International Journal of Transgender Health. I'm sure that's I'm sure that's a publication worthy of your dignity and respect. I'm kidding. The International Journal of Transgender Health about the sex lives of trans people. They are more likely to enjoy sex when frickin' high, from using illicit drugs, Cook and her research colleagues found. Really? They have to be messed up to enjoy sex? Okay. On illicit substances, illegal substances. She also co-wrote a 2021 paper for ACON about sex change procedures. It concluded that trans people struggle to access care and that all trans people in Australia should have full and free access to medical gender affirmation, including surgical interventions. This is controversial. Critics of gender ideology say trans people are often pushed too quickly into life-changing surgeries. Yes, they are. Children are. Children are being pushed into it very quickly. Many of them are now suing. I've covered this multiple times on this channel. But yes, they are being pushed into it too quickly. The WPATH files showed this. The CAS report showed this. The UN panel on which Cook now sits has been dogged by controversy from the outset. You know, somebody used that word dogged on purpose to be funny because of the bestiality allegations above. Nearly 2/3 of the panelists are human rights lawyers, activists, and policy advisors, while just slightly over a third of them are trained medical doctors. So only a third are actual medical doctors. Got it. Here's the panel. The ones with X's over their names, I believe, are the ones who've come under scrutiny. It's a lot of X's. It's like, what's that show? Would they give the X's we just did the reality show episode last night. The Is it American Idol or is it America's Got Talent? Anyway, one of them you get a big X. It includes several members of WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, a nonprofit that sets guidelines for trans care that critics say steers too many people towards risky drugs and operation. It does. If you read the WPATH files, which I encourage you to do, they were put out by two journalists, Michael Schellenberger and Mia Hughes. I did a series of videos on it. You can go and watch those videos if you want. In those files, the WPATH files, they had video and records of doctors saying on the record, and in some cases on video, that the children they are doing these mutilating surgeries on and that they're giving these sterilizing hormones to are not capable of consenting. That the very kids that they are having signed consent forms don't understand what they're consenting to. Of course they don't. They're even on camera laughing about this in one video. The president of WPATH, Marcy Bowers, is also on camera admitting that 100% of the little boys in Tanner stage 2, that's around age 11, who they give puberty blockers to, 100% of those little boys are never able to achieve orgasm in adulthood. They're not able to perform sexually. They're being chemically castrated. She says this on camera. I say she, but she is a biological male living as a woman. He says this on camera. So this panel includes some of those esteemed members of the discredited WPATH. Who says the panel will set global guidelines for how doctors and other professionals can raise, quote, the quality and respectful health services for trans and gender diverse people? Why would you have a panel full of activists whose primary goal is pushing their ideology? It's not medicine. It's not the Hippocratic Oath. It's not first do no harm. Critics say it is biased for including only advocates of hormones and surgery. Yes, of course it is. And nobody who says such procedures are extreme and dangerous and not always in the best interest of patients. So there's nobody on this panel living in the real world. There's nobody on this panel who disagrees with all of these people that we should be pushing people onto hormones and pushing people to cut off their body parts. There's nobody who disagrees with that. Not one dissenting voice. Anyway, this is the article that Billboard Chris shared that started this whole court drama in Australia. Let me go back to his original tweet. So because of this tweet where he mentioned, again, I'll read it. He just said, "This woman, yes, she's a woman, is part of a panel of 20 experts hired by the World Health Organization to draft their policy on caring for trans people. People who belong in psychiatric wards are writing the guidelines for people who belong in psychiatric wards." So because he posted that, he then was informed by the government of Australia that he had to remove his Twitter post, that post we just read. He had to remove it. Or Twitter had to remove it for him. And if they wouldn't remove it for him, they could face a fine of up to $800,000. Billboard Chris is of course not removing it. He's based. He has principles. He stands for truth. He's not going to be coerced to kiss the ring and take the knee. So he posted about it at the time. This was how this started. He said, "The Australian government has ordered my tweet below to be taken down. X can face a fine of up to 782,500 Australian dollars if they do not comply. I don't know if any civil action or fine can be directed at me under the law. A delegate for the e-safety commissioner says, quote, an ordinary," this is what they said in the paperwork they sent him to remove this, the government of Australia, "an ordinary reasonable person would conclude that it is likely that the material," that's the tweet we read, "is intended to cause serious harm to the complainant," to this Teddy Cook woman. Serious harm. Do you see how they've changed the definition of harm? Just like they've changed the definition of woman and man. And, they use this word harm all the time now. They've completely removed it, stripped of it of all meaning. Serious harm to the complainant. This is because the material misgenders the complainant and reiterates that this point is deliberate, which is likely intended to invalidate and mock the complainant's gender identity. Are we really living in a world? The answer is yes. Are we really living in a world where the government of Australia thinks it's their business to come in and police what citizens, not even citizens, a person in another country? Billboard Chris lives in Canada. The Australian government thinks it's their job to tell a citizen of Canada that what they can and can't say, what words they can and can't use. It's up to them to decide if your words are mocking the wrong identity group, or your words are invalidating. What does that even mean? Invalidating. Nothing Billboard Chris says or posts, or any of us say or post, is going to invalidate Teddy Cook's biological sex, which is female. She's a woman, and nothing he says or does is going to change that. And nothing she says or does is going to change that. She is a woman. That is truth. That is fact. It's as real as gravity. He doesn't have the power to invalidate her. They think so, though. See, the people who are in this ideology, some of them, the social justice ideology, the woke ideology, the ones who are really deep in the transgender, the gender identity part of that belief system. My pastor at Church on the Square, Bradley Helgerson, he made this point once online. I thought it was such a brilliant point, and in a sermon he made it. Because they don't live in the real world, they live in a fantasy world. It's like the emperor has no clothes. They're like the emperor in that story. They require everyone to pretend that they have clothes. They need it. Otherwise, and they need you to, quote, validate them by speaking lies and speaking the wrong pronoun and pretending. Teddy Cook needs you to pretend that she's a man. She's gets off on controlling you, and it doesn't work for her. The fantasy doesn't work for her unless we all participate. So they really, truly do feel probably invalidated. When they say those crazy things like, "You're denying my very right to exist," which is insane. But in their twisted head, it probably feels that way, because if you don't say the magic words, if you don't say the spells, the lies, then they feel like they don't exist as the sex they want to exist as. It's like, My delusion is dependent upon all of you guys participating, just like the emperor with no clothes. It's dependent on everyone participating and pretending I have clothes on. And Billboard Chris is someone who says, no, I decide what words I say. I decide. Similarly, Keri, I decide what words I say. I choose. No one else. I've gotten flack from both sides before. I've gotten flack from some of the TERFs, getting real whipped up. I've talked about that before, where they come after me because I call my friend Sarah Higdon, who's a transgender person who I've interviewed in the show. I call Sarah her, or I call Blair White her, and they equally want to tell me what I have to say. No, you don't get to do that. I control my language. I control my words. It's funny to get it from both sides, where people are like, no, but I have a say over what you don't get to say her when you talk about Sarah. Yeah, I can say whatever I want. Sorry. I can say whatever I want. I've explained that in a previous video. I'm not going to go too far down that side path now. But yeah, this is the government here basically saying that they think they have a right to tell individuals, to tell humans what words come out of their mouth. And not just for Australian citizens, but to tell people living in Canada what words come out of their mouth. I'm going to continue. The material, that's that tweet of his that we read, the material also contains a statement that implicitly equates transgender identity with a psychiatric condition. It is a psychiatric condition. Up until recently, it's always been treated as such. Gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. It is a mental disorder. My friend Sarah Higdon, who I mentioned a second ago, who's trans, is the first to say it is a mental disorder. Go watch the interview I did with her. Like, there are base trans people who oppose all this stuff, this crazy ideology, gender ideology being pushed on people like a spell, like a religion, who are like, what are you talking about? It is a mental disorder. It's always been in the DSM. It is not normal. It is not a normal part of the human condition to have gender dysphoria. It is not normal to think you are born in the wrong body and to have that much dysphoria and that much discomfort in your biological sex in your body. It's not normal. It is abnormal by definition. Just like body dysmorphia. Funny story. Maybe I'll post this later. I meant to post it before the show, but I ran out of time. I looked up on AI recently. I asked AI. They're both in the DSM, but what's been happening is ideology has had social justice and woke ideology, the trans part of it, gender ideology part of it, has had such an impact on our institutions that you've got the American Psychiatric Association and you've got all these different organizations who have gone along with the woke craze, and they've edited the DSM to get closer and closer to this place of saying, well, technically, we're going to say it's not a mental disorder anymore, but that things you experience because of it are. So they really are trying to get to a place, and I would say in some ways they've succeeded. I mean, we see the government saying this now. They've tried to get us to a place where we are pretending that it is normal to be born with gender dysphoria. And that every child, this is what they're pushing on children, and they're pushing this as young as kindergarten, that every child needs to decide that it's normal, that they need to decide if they're trans or not, that that's a normal thing. They're introducing this to children. Of course, the number of kids who are confused, who are now saying they think they're trans, or of course it's skyrocketed. You introduce this concept to them. Adults did this. Evil adults did this. Historically, less than 0.01% of kids ever dealt with gender dysphoria. Now you've got polls with, like, what is it, like a third or something of young people saying they're trans or they're queer or it's insane. It is a gender dysphoria. I looked, so this is what I said might post this later. I looked up on AI. I asked it, is body dysmorphia a mental disorder? And AI came back and said, yes, it is. I asked it, is gender dysphoria a mental disorder? And AI came back and said, "No, it's not." Crazy. Pretty crazy. So here, the government of Australia is saying the material also contains a statement that implicitly equates transgender identity with a psychiatric condition. It is a psychiatric condition. Not sorry about saying that. It's the truth. This statement is deliberately degrading. No, it's not. There's nothing degrading about it. It's a statement of fact. You're reading that into it. It's deliberately degrading and suggests that all transgender people, and in this case, the complainant in particular, have something that is wrong with their psychology. They do. They have something. She has something. Teddy Cook has something wrong with her psychology. She does. There's something wrong with her. I mean, that's not saying much. There's something wrong with a lot of people. There's something wrong with a lot of people. Sometimes for a short period of time in their life, sometimes for a long period of time, you know? That would be like saying back when I was before I got sober and I was an alcoholic, that would be like saying, saying Carrie's an alcoholic is intended to be degrading. It suggests there's something wrong about her psychology. Yes, there was something wrong about my psychology. It's the truth. It's the truth. Suggesting there's something wrong with their psychology and owing to their gender identity. Do you see how because language is what allows them to get away with all of this because they fuel all these changes in language. They fuel all of these um just takeovers of words where they change the definition of words and then they introduce new ones and this is how they control people. I've said this since I first left the social justice cult. Think about how do you control people? You control people's thoughts with language. You have to change the language. You have to change because if we change the way we speak about things, the way we think about things follows. Speaking of Orwell, he wrote about this a lot, about controlling language. They further state that quote, "An ordinary reasonable person in the position of the complainant," that's Teddy Cook, "would regard the material as being offensive." Why is it the government's job to play kindergarten cop and come in and say what the words you said are offensive and we have determined that a reasonable how does the government have the ability to do that to determine that a reasonable person would find it as offensive and who cares anyway? So what if it's being offensive is legal? It should be legal. This is because the material singles out the complainant to personify the poster's contempt. How they're the ones putting that label on him. How did they get to judge that he has contempt for transgender identity? As well as equating transgender identity with a psychiatric condition. Well, it is a psychiatric condition. So Billboard Chris continues and he says, "Well, Australian government, you certainly make a lot of assumptions. I do not hold that woman in contempt for her transgender identity because I maintain that gender identities do not exist." Based. Based. We are called males and females, and that's that. I also feel strongly that radical queer theorists have no business drafting anything to do with medical policy. Queer theory is a great evil that needs to be expunged from our society. In all statistical likelihood, this individual hired by the World Health Organization likely has one or more coexisting psychiatric comorbidities. Yeah, she probably does. And it is my opinion that she should not be writing guidelines for other people with psychiatric comorbidities. If you read the WPATH files or England's NHS report following their systematic review, or Finland's report, or Sweden's report, or Jamie Reed's whistleblower affidavit filed with the Attorney General of Missouri about what she saw as a case manager over 4 years at the Washington University Gender Clinic, or the testimonies of detransitioners, you too will come to understand that the majority of people receiving treatment at gender clinics have other coexisting mental health comorbidities which are not being treated. In fact, gender dysphoria is rarely the actual problem, but a cult. Yes, it is a cult that has swept the Western world, that has captured medical bodies and government bodies such as your own. The result is the greatest child abuse scandal in the history of modern medicine. He is speaking truth. A scandal which, in a just world, would result in certain members of your government spending the rest of their days in prison. Yeah. Truth. So, with all due respect, I am not taking my tweet down. Yes. What Elon Musk and X do is their call. I know they do what they must in following the law. Kind regards, Billboard Chris. So, this is one of my favorite tweets of all time. Uh, and you can see here that X and Elon Musk did not take it down. And what they did do was X decided to make the tweet unavailable in Australia to try and comply with the law, but also abide by their beliefs in free speech. They made it so that if you were accessing Twitter from an Australian IP address, you can't see the tweets. They are blocked. Those particular tweets are blocked in Australia, but the rest of the world, we can see them. And that did not please the e-safety commissioner in Australia and the Australian government. So they so now let's open up this article from Rebel News. So now in the appeal, can you guys see this? Oh, sorry, I was getting some kind of notification. I don't think it matters. But you can see this article from Rebel News that Billboard Chris tweeted yesterday. In the appeal, the judge orders that Billboard Chris and his lawyer lie. And in the very court documents themselves and in the very court proceeding itself about him supposedly breaking the law by misgendering this person, which he didn't, he accurately gendered her. They are now saying he has to lie and that they are forcing him to misgender her. They are trying to force him in the court documents to say he about this woman. Let's read this. Judge orders trans activist pronouns must be respected. You can't order me to respect, and respect is earned. You can't order me to respect anyone. Judge orders trans activist pronouns must be respected in Billboard Chris hearing. The court's directive that a biological woman cannot be referred to as she raises eyebrows amid ongoing legal battle for free speech. Let me just make this a little larger. The judge in Billboard Chris Elston's directions hearing declared that a biological woman be addressed with male pronouns in court. The call was made during a session on Thursday, which also debated the involvement of trans activist Teddy Cook in the case against Australia's e-safety commissioner. Dr. Reuben Kirkham of the Free Speech Union of Australia, representing Elston is Billboard Chris, was scolded for using female pronouns when referring to Cook in the court. Quote, "It was an interesting experience. The instruction was to use he or Teddy Cook. We opted for the latter. It was a federal court judge sitting at the AAT who then went on to call Cook they several times. The cognitive dissonance doesn't help the proceedings," the Free Speech Union posted on social media after the hearing. The court eventually ruled that Cook would not be a party to the proceedings and should not be named in tribunal documents. So this person, this woman, Teddy Cook, who is the reason why Billboard Chris is even having to be involved in this, and X faces $800,000 fine and all of this, his whole court case, everything. Teddy Cook is the reason, and Teddy Cook, they've said, doesn't have to be a party to the proceedings and shouldn't even be named. Why further harm this poor trans man, this poor woman, right? Discussions also covered whether X Corp should remain an interested party. The judge decided to keep the matters separate, but ordered that documents be shared between them, with hearings held concurrently unless confidentiality orders are imposed. Kirkham argued that the e-safety commissioner, Julie Inman Grant, was prolonging the case unnecessarily, advocating for a more expedited timeline. The judge has instructed all parties to file a certificate stating the matter is ready for hearing by the 28th of August. And so then they have, here we go. Elston, Billboard Chris, a Canadian, has a history of anti-child mutilation activism and recently had a post removed by X Corp following an order from the e-safety commissioner. The post mentioned Cook, which led to the threat of the $800,000 fine. So they removed it, but again, they only removed it in Australia. The post mentioned Cook, which led to the threat of the fine. X Corp complied, but is legally challenging the removal order. So X is actually legally challenging the order, citing free speech concerns, which is great. Thank you, Elon, for fighting that. Thank you for fighting this. And thank you, Billboard Chris, for standing up for truth. Super Based is here. Thank you, Super Based, for the 5D program memberships. I appreciate it. You're my little membership fairy. You guys grab those up. And Super Base gave a chat for $10. Thank you. And said, this Memorial Day weekend, we remember the men and women that paid the ultimate price for our freedom. May it serve as a reminder to continue the fight for that freedom at home and to honor them. Thank you very much for that reminder. Thank you. I'm going to keep this flag so we can put it up again at the end. John Thomas, Keri, did you see my tweet about Benjamin Boyce? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I don't see every time I get tagged or every message. I'll go back and look for it after this though. But thank you for that. Randy, hey Randy, for $5. If you value Keri's work, throw a few bucks her way. Value for value. Thank you. I should say thank you to the people who support our channel, the people who are members here at YouTube, and you can also be a member at Patreon, local, Subscribestar. You can support in any of those ways. Of those ways, sometimes people ask me which is the best platform. Probably Subscribestar. They are the least censorious of all of them. I don't know if the specific cuts that they take are different. I can't remember that off the top of my head. But in terms of like how they behave, Subscribestar, Patreon has taken people's stuff down before. Subscribestar, I've never seen them do that. Obviously, YouTube censors. But okay. Let me see if I did have one other news article about this, but it's most of the same information we've already covered. So I think I'm going to make this one a short one today. Thank you guys for being here. If you support what Billboard Chris is doing and you're not already following him, you can find him on X. I really appreciate him. I consider him a real friend. I've participated in some of his conversations with people on the street and wearing the billboards. And I just think we need more people like him. We need more people saying, taking him as an example. If you find him inspiring and saying, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to speak the truth. I'm going to be the person to choose my words. I'm very glad he's doing that. So go and find him online, support him, and let's see, have a great Memorial Day weekend. Let me put this back up, Super Based. There we go. Also, Real Raven, have a good weekend without any compelled speech. Yes. Have a great weekend without compelled speech. Let's see. Benjamin Boyce got journalism. They called him an agent provocateur. Oh, I think I did see something about this. Thank you for the $5 super chat. I'll go and look it up. I'll find it. I would love to have him on again soon. We had him, he and his wife stayed here with us a month or two ago, and it was a lot of fun hanging out with him. So I would love to talk to him. Okay, guys. I hope you have a great weekend. Take care. I know this was a short one. If you like it, please share it with someone, especially someone on the left who may not agree with you. Maybe have the courage to share it with someone. I don't know. But I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Take care.